The morning sun rose over New Haven like it did every other day. Children ran through the streets on their way to school. Farmers checked their crops in the fields outside the city walls. Mothers called out to their families for breakfast. It was a peaceful day on Elysium 4, a world that humanity had turned from barren rock into a garden paradise over 50 years of hard work. Commander Daniel Cole stood on the observation deck of Orbital Station 7, looking down at the planet below. He had been stationed here for 3 years, and he loved watching the colony grow. New Haven was home to 2.3 million people now. Families had built lives here. Children had been born here. It was proof that humanity could build something beautiful among the stars. His communication officer, a young woman named Beth Parker, approached him with a tablet in her hand. Her face was pale. "Sir, we're picking up multiple signatures entering the system," she said. "They're not responding to our hails." Daniel frowned and took the tablet. The signatures were large, very large, and they were moving fast toward the planet. "Identify them," he ordered. Beth swallowed hard. "Vorthani warships, sir." 12 of them. Daniel felt his blood run cold. The Vorthani Dominion was a militaristic empire that had been watching humanity with contempt for decades. They saw humans as soft, weak, and unworthy of the space they occupied. There had been tension at the borders for years, but nothing like this. "Get me a channel to Earth Command," Daniel said. "Now." But before Beth could respond, the first Vorthani ship opened fire. The plasma beams cut through the atmosphere like blades of light. They struck New Haven's capital city without warning. Buildings exploded. Streets turned to fire. The screams of millions filled the communication channels before going silent one by one. Daniel watched in horror as the Vorthani ships moved in formation, systematically targeting every population center on the planet. Schools, hospitals, refugee shelters filled with children. Nothing was spared. "Why aren't they stopping?" Beth cried, tears streaming down her face. "Those are civilians." Daniel had no answer. He could only watch as everything he had sworn to protect burned before his eyes. The attack lasted 4 hours. When it was over, New Haven was gone. The beautiful cities had become craters of ash and molten glass. The green fields were blackened wastelands. Of the 2.3 million souls who had woken up that morning to sunshine and laughter, fewer than 10,000 survived in underground bunkers. Daniel's rescue fleet arrived too late. He landed on the surface and walked through what remained of the capital. Bodies lay everywhere. Small bodies. Children who had been running to school just hours ago. He fell to his knees in the ash and wept. Across the galaxy. At the headquarters of the Galactic Concord, Ambassador Laura Mitchell was attending a diplomatic summit when her assistant rushed in with the news. She read the report 3 times because her mind refused to accept it. 2 million dead. An entire colony wiped out. For no reason other than to prove a point. The other ambassadors in the room watched her, with expressions ranging from pity to indifference. The Vorthani ambassador, a tall creature covered in gray scales, did not even try to hide his amusement. "A tragic incident," said High Arbiter Zixthorn, the ancient being who led the Concord. "The Council offers its condolences to humanity." Laura looked up at him. "Condolences?" "They murdered 2 million people. Children. They targeted shelters marked for children." Zixthorn waved one of his many arms in a dismissive gesture. "The Vorthani Dominion is a sovereign power. The Concord does not interfere in such matters. Perhaps humanity should have been more careful not to provoke them." Larva could not believe what she was hearing. "We did nothing to provoke this. We have always sought peace. We have always followed the rules." And that, the Vorthani ambassador spoke up, his voice dripping with contempt, "is exactly your problem. You are weak. You talk of peace because you cannot fight. The strong take what they want. The weak die. This is the way of the universe. Several other ambassadors nodded in agreement. In their eyes, humanity had simply learned its place. Laura stood slowly. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. I need to contact my government. She left the chamber without another word. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Every screen, every device, every public display showed the images from New Haven. The burning cities. The dead children. The Vorthani ships flying away without a scratch. For the first time in human history, the entire planet fell silent. Chancellor Marcus Grant sat alone in his office, watching the footage. He had dedicated his life to peace. He had believed that humanity could earn the respect of the galaxy through diplomacy, patience, and kindness. He had been wrong. His advisors waited outside, but he needed a moment to think. 60 years ago, when humanity first reached the stars, they had made a choice. They had decided to present themselves as peaceful, non-threatening, willing to cooperate. They had hidden their true capabilities because they did not want to be seen as a threat. They had shown the galaxy their best face, hoping to make friends, and in return, the galaxy had killed their children. Marcus picked up his phone and made one call. Convened the United Council. Emergency session. Tonight. That night, representatives from every nation on Earth and every human colony gathered in Geneva. The chamber was filled with grief and rage, but there was something else too. Something cold and hard that had been sleeping for a very long time. The vote was called. For the first time in human history, it was unanimous. Admiral Kevin Brooks received the orders on his secure channel. He read them twice, then looked at his command staff. It's time, he said simply. Across human space, in shipyards that had been supposedly decommissioned decades ago, lights began to flicker on. Engines that had never been started began to hum. Weapons that had never been fired began to charge. Humanity was done being refined, and the galaxy was about to learn what that meant. 3 days after the massacre, Chancellor Marcus Grant stepped up to the podium in Geneva. Every screen on Earth and in the colonies showed his face. Every human being who could watch was watching. He was a man known for his warm smile and gentle words. But today, there was no smile. His eyes were cold, and his voice was steady like ice. My fellow humans, he began. 3 days ago, the Vorthani Dominion attacked our colony on Elysium 4. They killed 2.3 million of our people. Men, women, children. They bombed hospitals and schools. They targeted refugee shelters that were clearly marked. They did this not because we threatened them, not because we harmed them. They did this because they believed we were weak, because they believed we would do nothing. He paused and looked directly into the camera. For 60 years, since we first reached the stars, we have presented ourselves as a peaceful species. We have smiled at insults. We have turned the other cheek when provoked. We have followed every rule, signed every treaty, and bent over backward to show the galaxy that humanity came in peace. His jaw tightened. We did this on purpose. We chose to appear weak. We chose to hide our true nature because we hoped that kindness would earn us friends. We did not want to frighten our new neighbors. We wanted to be accepted. He leaned forward slightly. But I need to tell you something now. Something we have kept secret for 6 decades. Humanity did not survive millions of years on Earth by being gentle. We did not climb to the top of our food chain by being nice. Our planet tried to kill us every single day. Disease, predators, ice ages, volcanoes, and each other. We survived because we are the most stubborn, adaptable, and dangerous species our world ever produced. Behind him, images began to appear on the screens. Hidden shipyards, massive weapons platforms, Technology that made the most advanced alien systems look like toys. We have been holding back, Marcus continued. We built ships we never showed anyone. We developed weapons we never used. We trained soldiers we kept hidden. We did all of this hoping we would never need it. Hoping that the galaxy would see our good faith and respond in kind. His voice grew harder. That hope died with our children on New Haven. At the Galactic Concord headquarters, Ambassador Laura Mitchell stood before the assembled representatives of 100 species. The chamber was full and every eye was on her. High Arbiter Zixthoran looked down at her with his usual bored expression. Ambassador Mitchell, you requested this audience. What does humanity wish to say? Laura took a deep breath. She had practiced this speech 100 times, but now that the moment was here, she found she did not need the words she had memorized. She spoke from her heart instead. When humanity came to the stars, we came hoping to find friends. We looked up at the night sky and imagined all the wonderful beings we might meet. We dreamed of learning from ancient civilizations, of sharing our art and music and stories, of becoming part of something greater than ourselves. She looked around the room at all the alien faces watching her. We knew we were newcomers. We knew we had much to learn. So we decided to be humble. We decided to be patient. We showed you our kindness, our willingness to cooperate, our desire for peace. Our expression changed from soft to steel, and you called it weakness. The Vorthani ambassador, whose name was Throkenar, let out a snort of laughter. Because it was weakness. Your people died screaming, and you could do nothing to stop it. What would you call that if not weakness? Laura turned to face him directly. She did not raise her voice. She did not need to. I would call it restraint. The room grew very quiet. For 60 years, Laura continued, humanity has been the polite newcomer at the party. We smiled when you insulted us. We apologized when you blamed us for things we did not do. We followed your rules even when those rules were unfair. We did all of this because we wanted peace. She took a step closer to the Vorthani ambassador. But here is what you failed to understand about us. Humans do not come from a gentle world. Our planet has been trying to kill us since we first climbed down from the trees. We survived ice ages that froze our continent solid. We survived diseases that killed half our population. We survived predators with claws and teeth that could tear us apart. We survived each other. The Vorthani ambassador's smile faded slightly. We are not herbivores pretending to be predators. We are apex predators who chose to act civilized. There is a difference. High Arbiter Zixthoran shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Ambassador Mitchell, what exactly is humanity trying to say? Laura turned back to face the entire assembly. We came to the stars hoping to make friends. We were willing to be patient. We showed you our kindness, and you called it weakness. You murdered our children to prove a point. She straightened her spine and lifted her chin. So hear us now. We are done being refined. We are done smiling at insults. We are done pretending to be something we are not. From this moment forward, humanity will show the galaxy exactly what we are. The Vorthani ambassador laughed again, but there was less certainty in it this time. And what are you? A species of soft pink creatures who cannot even protect one small colony? Laura smiled. It was not a warm smile. You will find out soon enough. She turned and walked out of the chamber without looking back. That night, across human space, the pretending ended. In shipyards hidden inside asteroids, lights came on. Deep beneath the surfaces of a dozen moons, engines began to wake. In bunkers that had been sealed for decades, crews reported to their stations. The galaxy had wanted to know what humanity was capable of. They were about to get their answer. Admiral Kevin Brooks stood on the bridge of the Eds, Retribution, and watched through the view screen as Humanity's secret revealed itself to the universe. Ships emerged from the darkness of space like giants waking from a long sleep. They came from inside hollowed asteroids where they had been built in silence. They rose from beneath the crusts of frozen moons. They appeared from the dark side of planets where no one had thought to look. And they were enormous. The standard warships of the Galactic Concord measured around 300 meters in length. The Vorthani pride themselves on their dreadnoughts, massive vessels nearly a kilometer long. They believed nothing in the galaxy could match their power. The ED's Retribution was 4 kilometers long. And she was not even the biggest ship in the human fleet. Captain Derek Walsh, commander of the Retribution, stood beside Admiral Brooks. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and scars on his hands. He had spent 30 years training for a war he hoped would never come. "How many ships do we have now?" Brooks asked. 312 combat-ready vessels, Walsh replied. Another 200 in final preparation. More coming online every day. Brooks nodded slowly. 60 years of secret construction. 60 years of hidden research. All because humanity's leaders had known, deep in their hearts, that the galaxy would eventually show its true face. In a laboratory buried beneath the mountains of Mars. Dr. Nicole Adams was giving a briefing to Earth's military command. She was a small woman with wild hair and tired eyes, but when she spoke about her work, her voice was filled with quiet pride. "We always knew this day might come," she explained. "So while we showed the galaxy our peaceful face, we prepared for the worst in secret." She pulled up images on the screen behind her. "Our hull plating uses molecular bonding technology that we developed from studying asteroid impacts. A direct hit from a standard plasma cannon would feel like rain to our ships." She changed the image. "Our weapon systems are based on directed kinetic energy. Instead of relying on heat or radiation like most galactic weapons, we accelerate solid projectiles to a fraction of light speed. The impact force is significant." One of the generals in the room raised his hand. "How significant?" Dr. Adams almost smiled. "A single round from one of our main guns carries more energy than the total weapons output of a Vorthani dreadnought. And our ships carry thousands of rounds." The room was silent. "But that is not our most powerful weapon," she continued. "We also developed gravity manipulation technology. We can create localized gravitational fields strong enough to crush anything caught inside them. We can open microscopic black holes that exist for just a fraction of a second but destroy everything within their radius." She paused. "And then there is Protocol Omega. But I hope we never have to use that." No one asked what Protocol Omega was. The look in her eyes suggested they did not want to know. Across the galaxy, other species were watching the human revelation with growing alarm. The news feed showed footage of the massive human ships assembling information. Analysis programs calculated the power output of their engines, the thickness of their armor, the estimated yield of their weapons. The numbers were terrifying. On the Vorthani homeworld, Warlord Kethker sat in his command center and watched the same footage. He was the one who had ordered the attack on New Haven. He had expected the humans to weep and beg and do nothing. He had expected to become a hero for putting the weak pink creatures in their place. Instead, he was watching a nightmare come to life. "This is impossible," said one of his advisors. "The humans are primitives. They cannot have technology like this." "Apparently they can," another advisor replied. "The question is what we do about it." Kethker slammed his fist on the table. "We are the Vorthani Dominion. We have conquered 100 worlds. We do not run from anyone, especially not from soft-skinned mammals who cry over their dead." But even as he spoke the brave words, he was already ordering his fleets to fall back to defensive positions. Just in case. In the void between stars, Admiral Brooks addressed the assembled human fleet. His image appeared on every screen of every ship, and his voice reached the ears of 200,000 crew members. 60 years ago, our grandparents looked up at the stars and dreamed of the friends they might find there. They wanted to believe that the universe was full of wisdom and wonder. They wanted to earn a place among the stars through kindness and cooperation. His expression hardened. The Vorthani answered that dream by murdering our children. They bombed schools and hospitals. They laughed as families burned. They did this because they thought we were weak, because they thought there would be no consequences. He paused. They were wrong. Around him, the massive ships of the human fleet powered up their engines. Weapon systems came online. Navigation computers plotted courses to Vorthani space. We did not want this war, Brooks continued. We have never wanted any war. But when they came for our children, they made the choice for us. Now we will show them what humanity is truly capable of. Not because we want revenge, but because if we do not respond, they will do this again. And again. And again. He straightened in his chair. All ships prepare for faster-than-light jump. Destination: Vorthani border. We gave the galaxy 6 decades of peace. They spat in our face. Now they will learn the truth about the people they called weak. 300 human warships jumped to light speed simultaneously. The galaxy held its breath. The reckoning had begun. The Vorthani border defense line was considered the strongest military position in the sector. 300 warships, dozens of orbital platforms, and thousands of fighter craft stood, ready to destroy any invader foolish enough to approach. They lasted 47 minutes. Captain Derek Walsh watched from the bridge of the EDS Retribution as the battle unfolded. The Vorthani opened fire the moment the human fleet arrived, just as expected. Their plasma cannons lit up the darkness of space with bright green fury. The shots splashed harmlessly against the human hull plating. "Return fire," Walsh ordered calmly. "Main batteries only. Let us see what we are dealing with." The Retribution's primary weapon spoke. A stream of kinetic rounds, each one the size of a small car, accelerated to impossible speeds and crossed the distance between the fleets in less than a second. The first Vorthani dreadnought simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there, massive and threatening. The next moment it was a cloud of expanding debris. The second and third ships followed within heartbeats. On the Vorthani flagship, the commanders watched in horror as their mighty fleet was torn apart like paper in a storm. Their strongest weapons could not scratch the human ships. Their fastest vessels could not escape. Their proudest warriors died without ever landing a single meaningful blow. "Fall back!" The Vorthani admiral screamed. "All ships, fall back to the inner systems." But falling back only meant dying while running, instead of dying while fighting. Admiral Brooks observed the battle from his command ship. There was no joy on his face. This was not a victory to celebrate. This was a demonstration. A lesson that had to be taught. "Secure the border stations," he ordered. "Any Vorthani military personnel will be taken prisoner. Any civilians will be protected. Remind all crews of the rules of engagement. We are not here to become what they are." The message was clear. Humanity had come to deliver justice, not to commit atrocities. In the Galactic Concord headquarters, the assembled ambassadors watched live feeds of the battle with expressions ranging from disbelief to terror. The Vorthani ambassador had left his seat and was screaming into a communicator, demanding to know how this was possible. High Arbiter Zixthoran sat in stunned silence. He had lived for thousands of years. He had seen empires rise and fall, but he had never seen anything like this. The humans had been among them for 6 decades. They had smiled and bowed and played the part of humble newcomers. And all that time, they had been hiding this. Ambassador Laura Mitchell sat in her seat with her hands folded in her lap. She did not smile. She did not gloat. She simply watched the screens like everyone else. A representative from one of the smaller species approached her carefully. "Ambassador, we had no part in the massacre. Our people have always respected humanity. We want you to know that." Laura looked at him kindly. "We know. And we remember who our friends are." The message was received throughout the room. Humanity was not here to conquer the galaxy. They were here for the ones who had wronged them, and only them. 2 weeks later, the human fleet arrived at Keth Prime, the Vorthani world where warlord Kethker had planned the massacre. This was the heart of his power. This was where he had laughed at the images of burning human children. Commander Daniel Cole led the ground assault. He had requested this assignment personally. He had been the one who arrived too late at New Haven. He had walked through the ashes and held the bodies of children. He needed to see this through. His soldiers moved through the Vorthani military installations with terrible efficiency. 60 years of secret training had created the finest fighting force in the galaxy. They breached walls that were supposed to be unbreakable. They neutralized weapons that were supposed to be unstoppable. They captured soldiers who had been told humans were too weak to fight, but whenever they encountered civilians, they stopped. "Hold fire," Cole ordered as a group of Vorthani children ran across their path, crying for their parents. "Get those kids to safety. Find their families." His soldiers obeyed without hesitation. They were warriors, not monsters. The battle for Keth Prime lasted 6 hours. When it was over, every military target had been destroyed or captured. But the civilian areas remained untouched. Not a single innocent Vorthani had been harmed. Warlord Kethker was found trying to escape through a hidden tunnel. He was brought before Commander Cole in restraints, still wearing the ceremonial armor he had worn when he ordered the attack on New Haven. Cole looked at him for a long moment. This was the creature who had murdered 2 million of his people. 2 million innocent men, women, and children, killed for nothing more than pride and cruelty. Part of him wanted revenge. Part of him wanted to make this monster suffer the way his victims had suffered. But he was human, and being human meant being better than his worst instincts. "You killed 2 million of our people to send a message," Cole said quietly. "Message received. Here is ours." He gestured to the captured Vorthani soldiers, to the untouched civilian districts, to the human mechs who were already setting up aid stations for wounded enemies. "We do not do this to civilians. We are not like you. We came here for justice, not for revenge. Your soldiers will be treated as prisoners of war according to our laws. Your civilians will be given food and medicine. Your world will not be destroyed." Kethker stared at him in confusion. This was not how war was supposed to work. "But those who gave the orders," Cole continued. "Those who pulled the triggers. Those who laughed while our children burned. You will answer for what you have done." He turned to his soldiers. "Take him to the ship. He will stand trial before an Earth tribunal. And the galaxy will watch as we show them what justice really looks like." As Kethker was led away, Commander Cole walked to a window and looked out at the alien sky. Somewhere out there, across the vast darkness of space, was a crater where New Haven used to stand. A mass grave for 2 million souls who had simply been living their lives when death fell from the sky. "We came too late to save you," he whispered. "But I swear, we will never let this happen again." 1 year had passed since the war ended. The Vorthani Dominion was no more. Not because humanity had destroyed them, but because their own empire had collapsed from within. When their military might was proven to be worthless, their subject races had risen up. Worlds that had lived under Vorthani cruelty for centuries finally found the courage to break free. The war criminals were tried before an Earth tribunal broadcast across the galaxy. Warlord Kethgar and 47 of his commanders were found guilty of crimes against humanity. They were sentenced to life imprisonment, not execution. Humanity wanted justice, not blood. What shocked the galaxy most was what came after the trials. Human ships arrived at Vorthani civilian worlds not with weapons, but with supplies, food, medicine, engineers to help rebuild infrastructure, teachers to help educate children. The species that had murdered millions of humans was now receiving aid from the very people they had tried to destroy. When asked why, Chancellor Marcus Grant simply said, "Because that is who we are. We do not punish children for the sins of their leaders. We will not become the monsters we fought against." The galaxy had never seen anything like it. At the Galactic Concord headquarters, a special session was called to discuss humanity's new role in galactic affairs. The chamber was fuller than it had ever been. Every species that could send a representative had done so. They all wanted to see what humanity would do next. Ambassador Lara Mitchell stood before them once again. But this time, the other ambassadors did not look at her with contempt or amusement. They looked at her with respect and more than a little fear. High Arbiter Zix Thorne spoke first. Ambassador Mitchell, the Galactic Concord formally requests that humanity take a leadership role in our organization. Your wisdom, your strength, and your restraint have proven that you are worthy of guiding us into the future. Lara let the words hang in the air for a moment before responding. We did not come to the stars seeking power. We did not ask for this war. We certainly did not want to become the strongest military force in the galaxy. She looked around at all the faces watching her. When we first left Earth, we were filled with hope and wonder. We imagined meeting wise ancient races who would share their knowledge with us. We dreamed of friendships that would span the stars. We wanted so desperately to believe that the universe was a kind and welcoming place. Her expression softened slightly. We were naive, but we were not wrong to hope. Hope is what makes us human. It is what drove us to survive on a world that tried to kill us every day. It is what pushed us to reach beyond our planet and touch the stars. And it is what will guide us now as we step into this new role. She straightened her shoulders. Humanity will accept a leadership position in the Galactic Concord. But we have conditions. The room grew very quiet. First, there will be no more massacres. Any attack on civilian populations by any species will be treated as a crime against all civilized beings. We will respond to such attacks with everything we have. Several ambassadors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Second, the strong will not be allowed to prey upon the weak simply because they can. Every species has the right to exist in peace, regardless of their military power. The Concord will become a true alliance, not just a talking shop where the powerful divide up the galaxy among themselves. More uncomfortable shifting. Third, and most importantly, we will judge others by their actions, not by their species or their history. Those who treat us with respect will be treated with respect in return. Those who threaten the innocent will face consequences. It is that simple. She paused. We did not want to show the galaxy what we were hiding. We hoped we would never have to. But now that you have seen us, let us be clear about who we are. Her voice grew stronger. We are the children of a death world. We climbed down from trees and learned to make fire while predators circled in the darkness. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars among ourselves. We built civilizations from nothing and rebuilt them when they fell. We are stubborn, adaptable, and very, very hard to kill. She almost smiled. But we are also dreamers. We paint pictures and write songs. We tell stories and build families. We look up at the stars and wonder what wonders await us. We believe, despite all evidence to the contrary, that the universe can be a better place if we work together to make it so. She spread her hands. That is what humanity offers the galaxy. Strength and hope. Protection and partnership. The closed fist and the open hand. The choice of which one you receive is yours. The chamber erupted in applause. Even species who had privately supported the Vorthani found themselves clapping. It was impossible not to be moved. Months later, Admiral Kevin Brooks visited the place where New Haven had once stood. He was retired now, having handed command of the fleet to his protege Derek Walsh, who had been promoted to admiral after the war. A memorial had been built on the scorched ground. A wall of black stone stretched for kilometers, carved with the names of everyone who had died. 2,347,912 names. Brooks walked along the wall slowly, reading name after name. Families, children, old people, young people, people who had done nothing wrong except be human in a galaxy that saw kindness as weakness. He stopped at a section of the wall and placed his hand on the cool stone. "We were too late to save you," he whispered. "I am sorry. I am so sorry." He stood there for a long time, remembering. When he finally turned to leave, he saw that he was not alone. Dozens of other visitors walked among the graves. Some were crying. Some were praying. Some simply stood in silence, paying their respects. And among them, he noticed something that made him stop. A group of young Vorthani children, brought here by human teachers as part of an exchange program. They walked along the wall with wide eyes, reading the names of the people their leaders had killed. Some of them were crying too. Their teacher, a human woman with kind eyes, knelt beside them and spoke softly. "This is why we do not hurt innocent people. This is why we choose kindness instead of cruelty. Because every name on this wall was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend." One of the Vorthani children looked up at her. "Will your people ever forgive us?" The teacher thought about it for a moment. Then she smiled gently. "You did not do this. Your leaders did, and they have been punished. It is not for children to carry the sins of their elders. What matters now is what you do with your life. Will you choose kindness or cruelty? Will you build or destroy? That choice is yours." Brooks watched the scene with tears in his eyes. This was why they had fought. Not for revenge, not for power, but for this. For a future where children of all species could learn from the past instead of repeating it. He looked up at the sky, where human ships patrolled alongside vessels from a dozen former enemy species, working together to keep the peace. The galaxy had learned an important lesson that year. Humanity's greatest strength was never their ships or their weapons. It was their refusal to become the monsters they fought against. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was a lesson worth teaching.